If you enjoy these true stories, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support keeps the stories coming. Now, let's dive into today's story. For the longest time, I believed revenge was something reserved for film scripts overblown, theatrical, always with some dramatic twist. I never thought it would quietly creep into my real life, hidden behind the familiar face of the man I once adored. The man I exchanged vows with. The one I betrayed. It began with something seemingly harmless, a dinner after work with a colleague named Colin. A few drinks, some shared laughter, and a kiss I told myself meant absolutely nothing. But once a boundary is crossed, it becomes easier to blur the next one. I'm not saying this to justify anything. The truth is, I had a full-blown affair. It went on for 7 months, always with Colin. Always under this delusion that I was the one in control, and my husband Mark would never notice. Mark, with his steady routines and endless shifts at the hospital, never questioned my late nights or how often I was glued to my phone, or so I believed. We had been married for 5 years. We met back in college. He was working toward a nursing degree, and I was immersed in business school. Ours was a quiet, grounded kind of relationship, or so it seemed. What I now realize is that our life was built entirely on his faith in me, and I was the one who fractured it, no demolished it. But Mark never shouted, never confronted me with accusations or demands. That's the part that haunts me most. When he uncovered the truth, he said absolutely nothing. He carried on like everything was normal, smiling, kissing my forehead before work, asking if I wanted my coffee with cream. I didn't know he knew. Not until I lost my job. At the time, I worked in HR at a mid-sized tech company. The pay was solid. The benefits were good. But more than that, I loved the influence, the respect I carried when I walked into meetings. That position became a part of who I was. One Monday morning, I was called into my manager's office. Trina, my supervisor, looked tense from the moment I stepped inside. She informed me that an anonymous report had been filed. It detailed inappropriate conduct and a serious conflict of interest. My relationship with Colin, who worked in another department, had apparently been recorded in disturbing detail. Dates, times, screenshots of texts. I was blindsided. I denied everything at first, but Trina had already seen too much. Within the hour, I was being escorted out of the building, clutching a cardboard box and my final paycheck. Colin, he didn't answer my calls, didn't even have the courtesy to give me a heads up. A week later, I found out he had been promoted. I returned home that afternoon, still in a daze, my heels clicking hollowly against the tile. Mark was at the kitchen table, casually sipping coffee. It was his day off. "You're home early?" he said, not even glancing up. "I got fired," I blurted, voice trembling. He finally looked at me, and what I saw was not shock, not pity, just a slow, knowing smile, like watching the final puzzle piece fall into place. "That's rough," he said simply. And in that moment, I knew. I tried to pretend I didn't understand. I asked who could have possibly reported me. I pressed for details. Mark just tilted his head and said, "Funny how things surface, isn't it?" I demanded answers. "Did he do it?" He chuckled softly. "You think I'd destroy your life over some affair?" he asked. "No. That's not revenge. That's what karma looks like." That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled out of control. Had he done it? Was this only the beginning? Turns out, it was. Over the following weeks, things unraveled even further. Friends I'd known for years stopped responding to my messages. One blocked me entirely. Eventually, I learned someone had shared my messages with Colin, explicit content in a group chat I hadn't even known existed. Then came the worst part: my parents. Conservative, status-obsessed. Appearances meant everything to them. They received a letter no return address. Inside were printed screenshots and summaries of my affair. A note attached read, "This is the daughter you're so proud of." My mother was hysterical on the phone. And through all of it, Mark remained silent. He didn't scream, didn't accuse. He simply watched from the sidelines, while everything I cared about slowly fell apart. I begged him to speak. I pleaded for a second chance. I offered to go to counseling. Promised I'd change. He never lost his calm. He just kept smiling, cold and distant, like a man who had already made peace with the destruction he had unleashed. Then came the final act. One evening, after another humiliating interview for a job I was far overqualified for, I came home to find my belongings packed into tidy boxers by the front door. Mark was standing there, an envelope in his hand. "What's this?" I asked, voice raw. "Divorce papers," he said. You don't need to sign tonight, but I want you out by the weekend. I dropped to the floor, sobbing, clutching his hand. He didn't flinch. You didn't just betray me, he said. You made me feel invisible. Like I was just filling time while you lived your double life. Now, you get to feel what that's like. You've ruined everything, I whispered. He crouched beside me and looked me dead in the eye. No, he said calmly. You did that. I just brought the truth into the light. He never shouted, never laid a finger on me, never broke a dish or slammed a door, but his quiet, deliberate dismantling of everything I held dear was more brutal than any physical blow could have been. By the time I moved out, I had nothing left but a suitcase and a beat-up car. My savings were gone, my name was dirt, and my self-worth obliterated. Out of desperation, I reached out to Colin again, not out of love, but because he was the only one left. He never replied. It's been nearly a year. Now, I live in a tiny apartment where the walls are cracked, and my neighbors scream through the night. I juggled to low-paying part-time jobs. No one here knows who I used to be. Maybe that's for the best. I still think about Mark. Sometimes, I rehearse apologies I'll never send. Sometimes, I wonder what I'd say if I ran into him again. But mostly, I sit with the silence and let the reality of what I did wash over me. He never yelled, never retaliated with violence, but he destroyed Mika methodically and with terrifying precision. I once believed love could overcome betrayal. Now I understand. Love can break you. But revenge doesn't roar. It whispers.